Hello, welcome to the Cube Pod, episode 105. John Furrier, Dave Vellante, salute in the same state. Dave, salute.
John, you're just up the street.
I'm in Weston, my
Come on
sister's
in
house.
to come into the studio, brother.
I'm tired from New York. Andy Jassy stopped by the Cube yesterday. He was in the building, CEO of Amazon. I was going to say AWS. He had his folks with him. I met the parents, and Ilana was there. His wife. It was a family affair, sitting down
That
with
was his wife
Jim
there?
Cramer and the
Lovely.
Cube to
Amazing.
chat.
Dude, you're looking good. You're looking tan. I'm shiny. I gotta put some anti-shine on here.
It was 102 degrees on one day, 107 on the other.
In the Big Apple?
Yeah,
When I was
yeah.
driving down the other day, it was 107 when I was sitting in traffic on the FDR.
It was hot. Hot week in New York, and the studio's looking good. We had a bunch of interviews. Great to see you down there.
Yeah, it was great
Made
to
a
be
bunch
down
of
there.
hits in getting operational. Brian
It's good to
Bauman
see.
made his debut on the NYSE live TV show this morning with
I saw
Kirsten,
that.
and was great and pumping up Wired. We're going to the Raise conference in Paris next week. Just a lot of action, going on in the tech community. AI is continuing to create such a transformative. In fact, Jassy said yesterday to Jim Cramer on his segment on Mad Money, and as well as the one-on-one we had at the Cube. In our new studio there, which by the way, he said he's definitely going to do a video there. So he's pumped it to, he was totally impressed with the setup. He loved the location and is going to come on and do next time he's on Mad Money, he's going to come by the Cube. But just, the action in New York, Dave, as you saw, is with the Wired community growing so fast from NYSC and the Cube's collaboration, the Cube and the NYSE, is Wired. Brian Bauman, the founder, putting it together, driving that franchise of digital culture is just creating such an attraction for the leaders in the industry to come in. And of course, the Cube alumni with our 15,000 members or alumni that we've interviewed over the past 16 years, just the combination of the NYSE, Wall Street crowd, from financial analysts to media, is converging with the Cube's enterprise, cloud, data center, AI data community. Just really, there's a huge overlap and connection between the two communities. And so, it's been seeing the activity really significantly increase. So it's been quite a ride. And again, Andy Jassy, coming in, their stock is almost at an all-time high, but it dipped a little bit. I didn't check what it was today, but clearly, you know, they have a lot of headroom. And the internal scuttlebutt, this is from sources inside Amazon, telling me that there's, tons of headroom on top of it. So we'll see. I mean,
Did you see
he
the
was talking
they
about,
got did you see the
robotics. He was,
did you see they have more robots than humans now in the warehouses?
yeah, I mean, yeah, and
See
he's
that article?
predicting humanoids. They have a humanoid. So not, it's still primitive, as he said, but, it's coming. And the robotics content we just did, Palo Alto, it was that series, the AI robotics leaders, is still popping on the network. So it's really been an
Well,
amazing ride.
I want
So
I want to mention a couple things about. So a few weeks ago, what was it 2 or 3 weeks ago now? We had the AI robotics leaders. So you did an amazing job there. I learned a lot. Um, we had a full spectrum. We had on one side of the argument was we're going to have general purpose robots, like humanoid robots, that are going to be under, $50,000. Think 49,999, and they're going to be general robots that can do anything. And then the other end of the spectrum was no, that's not the right way to go. We're going to have highly specialized robots, a robot that does your laundry, a robot that does your cooking, a robot that mows your lawn, and they're going to be sub $1,500 each. I like that model because I think it has a higher probability of success than sort of a general purpose model, which does a lot of things, 75%. So that was kind of one thing. The second thing is the crypto trailblazers last week was picking up on, I think this is the second crypto trailblazers we've done. I tell you, dude, the stable coins are exploding. You saw Circle is now, applying to be, basically essentially a certified entity, and you're seeing these stable coins are backed by high quality banks and real world assets. And that's going to be a really interesting dynamic to play out. And you've seen what Circle Stock has done. I mean, you've learned quite a bit about this in the last, 6 months or so. And of course, you've been following crypto and stablecoins for years, but it's really starting to provide critical infrastructure now for the banking community. And I'm predicting that you're going to start to see central bank digital currencies start to be fused together in a digital world and real world assets becoming digitized and tokenized. And we're entering it as an entirely new, really exciting era where these assets become much more fungible, much more tradable, and is much more facile environment to trade these assets. It's going to be amazing.
I mean, stable coins are going to change the global financial system as we know it. As digital currency becomes more programmable, the systems, and we covered this this week, some interviews this week were very much along the same lines where, the crypto market is moving into what it was supposed to be before the whole, scams took over. But, blockchain and decentralized infrastructure is going to now go back to its roots where you're starting to see infrastructure and the international settlement market, stablecoins will play there, and then this will be a sovereignty opportunity, and everything that was built pre, I call old sovereignty models, and we saw that with the rise of like the GDPRs of the world and the cloud world. You're going to see the financial infrastructure change because you got banks and money. They're two different things, right? So, physical and digital coming together with AI. We're seeing it and in the AI factories that we cover. Now that's going to replicate itself into a series of decentralized, diversified payment systems and goods that are digital, which is everything, needs to have a system, and the system isn't built for that. So I think it's going to be a huge case study in the next 2 years as this transformation explodes because the value creation extraction of digital is just scratching the surface. And I think AI is going to be, even as Andy Jassy said to me personally yesterday, and also said to Kramer on his show, AI is going to be the more transformative than even cloud. And for Jassy to say that, that's huge because he's all cloud, right? So for him to say that, it's AI is the next cloud wave, the next kind of big surge, and it's software. So you apply that same principle to money, you got to have infrastructure, right? So, you and I have been riffing a lot about this around stable coins, the value of media, the value of currency, and then, what's going to unify all this, these protocols, smart contracts. Right now we're living in a world of digital islands, right? They're all like siloed. You use the word stovepipes. It's a tech problem meets money. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity for entrepreneurs and innovators who see this opportunity to link these currencies together because there's going to be multiple stable coins, right? It just can't be one. We're going to have maybe the U.S. settles on one. It may not be Circle. It may be something else. But what about when you leave the United States? I mean, these are all questions I have, but this is going to be figured out. So we'll see. I think it's a great opportunity, and I think the buzz in New York specifically, because that's where the central money systems thinking center of capitalism is. Like at the stock exchange where we're at. I mean, you see it every day. It's like the Wall Street guys, right? The tech guys in Silicon Valley. They're merging. They're merging, and the culture is emerging. So it's going to be very interesting to see when you blend a tech person with a finance person. What does that look like? What's the output? You cross those two personas. What do you get? A
Well,
mercenary or a missionary? I mean, there's an article today in Wired about Zuckerberg fighting with OpenAI, and I think the headline on Wired magazine is, Sam Altman sent a memo to staff: missionaries beat mercenaries. and he's basically calling Meta mercenaries. Zuckerberg offering people, literally $100 million in the first year and $300 million over 3 years. I mean, so you got a massive money system happening, Dave. I mean, it's like mind blowing. I mean, forget about the tech stuff or about robotics. I mean, AI is all mind blowing. It's just mind blowing market right now. There's a lot of meat on the bone, as they say, as we say. So, I
There's a
mean,
lot of
fun.
there's a lot of talk recently with the stock market hitting new highs about the parallels and differences between the .com and today's AI. I heard Kathy Wood on TV this morning saying, "Yeah, everybody's talking about the similarities, but it's nothing like that." I think the truth is there are a lot of similarities. Certainly, the hype, people, companies spending money with other companies, capex funding NVIDIA, kind of that very small world, even though the AI trade seems to be broadening. But there are a lot of differences too. The companies that are funding this thing are, much more stable. They have much more consistent cash flows than what we saw with, the Global Crossings and the Enrons and some of the other ones that were building out all the internet infrastructure, the MCIs and WorldComs. But I would say this, one of the things, so a couple things. One is Kathy Wood said something that's really interesting. By the way, her ARK Invest Fund is now back to kind of year-to-date highs. She was getting crushed. Of course, Tesla's way down today, and she's a big Tesla bull. But one of the things she said um, is that they do real research, and their research, I loved this, is based upon Wright's Law. You've heard me talking about with Floyer Wright's Law for years. And she's really the only, and of course, the interviewer was some CNBC person. They just skipped right over it. They didn't ask, what is Wright's Law? How is that? They just had zero interest in it. But essentially, Wright's Law is in manufacturing says that as you double the cumulative volume of your output, your costs decline by some constant. And when you start to think about exponential growth, your volumes can double very, very rapidly. And we're seeing that with the likes of, we saw that with ARM, seeing that with NVIDIA, we saw that in reverse, how Wright's Law was just, crushing Intel. And so I thought that was very interesting that she was talking about that. And then I think the other thing is the similarities here with the .com is you saw this amazing hype and these numbers that were thrown around that looked ridiculous. And then at some point, it's, as we all know, there's going to be a top. And something's going to happen where things blow up and then it's going to crash and then it's going to come back. My prediction, as it always happens with these waves, it comes back and makes these early numbers, $500 billion in Abilene, Texas, and trillions of dollars of investment coming out of the UAE. You look back and it's going to make those numbers look like, tiny compared to what the potential is for economic growth. And the last thing I'll say is I really do think that AI is going to be a productivity increase. We're going to see that productivity boost. At some point, it's going to show up in the numbers. And I think it's going to drop down to EPS. And I think, yes, I think the market is at some point going to be overvalued and the bubble will pop. But I think it will, over a 10-year plus horizon, come back much, much higher than people realize and even expect.
I mean, the IPO market's starting to heat up. You're starting to see, that Trump setback. We covered that in April. Remember when we had Liberation Day, and then the market kind of went cold. Figma filed for IPO today on the NYSE, so that's going to be another one. I hear
Did,
that everyone's planning for Q1, big
did you
time.
see? Did you see the Senate pass the big, beautiful bill?
Yeah.
They had to break out JD Vance to break the tie. That's the way it goes these days. It's either Kamala or JD breaking the tie because there is no bipartisanship. But that, to the extent that it survives the House, is going to be stimulative. And I think the Fed is going to cut. The Fed's going to eventually have to cut here, or at
I
least
mean,
I think they
that
will, and that's going to be stimulative. So
bill,
that could
that bill, they
what's
voted they voted 99 to 1 to remove the provision that would have barred states from regulating AI. That was a big, um,
yeah.
big vote of no confidence. Um, so yeah, that's politics. I mean, the politics I think is sorting itself out. Again, that's good for the market. I mean, I think once rational people get their arms around what's happening, you know, and if you kick in Wright's law, what you were just mentioning in the productivity gains from AI, you know, this is going to be interesting to see how the states regulate AI because, a lot of these sovereignty issues are around states. I mean, I did an interview this week with Dave DeWalt. Okay, he talked to me on theCUBE. He was talking about essentially, um, talking to me about how the Iron Dome in Israel, that the U.S. is looking to build domes around cities for drones, protect them from drones. So, can you imagine Manhattan with a dome around it? So you're going to have all this AI, and then if AI doesn't work state to state, you're going to have again fragmentation. You know, as robots move across lines on the map, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see how that also
Well,
all plays
and
out. I mean, it's going to be crazy.
and just to put a finer point on that, I mean, we all know about Intel's troubles. We've talked about this ad nauseum, but this weekend I had a Furrier special. Furrier came in, he did his magic, and we did actually look back at Intel. I don't know if you had a chance to read what we wrote, and basically, looking forward about Lip-Butan's um, plan. And we had Diane Bryant on a couple weeks ago. She pointed out that when she ran the data center business at Intel, they had 99% of the data center market. And let me just share a stat with you. You remember the sort of, I call it a dead cat bounce of 2020 for PCs and x86. But between 2020 and 2024, check this out. This is stark. Intel's share of the data center processor market dropped from 73% of revenue to just 11%. So last year, basically 10% of the market was Intel. 5 years ago, 4 years prior to that, they had 73%. That is a complete bit flip in the architecture of systems. We're gone from scalar to parallel, like literally overnight. And
It's
that
unbelievable.
underscores the fast change that we're in. I mean, that's faster than, I mean, the internet was all like, smoke and mirrors, like, oh, it's a paradigm shift, and pets.com. And, but eventually it did happen, but it didn't happen that fast. This is real, actual CapEx being deployed
Yeah,
by
yeah.
companies that have incredible cash flows and have unbelievable profitability. I heard one analyst today, and it was really actually poignant. If you see if I can remember it, we've had like 5 disappointments, right? We had COVID, we had inflation, we had war, we had tariffs, we had something else or Iran. We had all this stuff, and the earnings keep growing, cash flow keeps growing, and so these companies are just pumping out cash and they're pouring it into this AI trade. At some point, it's got to pay back. I think a lot of people are, some minority are thinking, all right, the whole thing's going to blow up. I, for one, don't think it's gonna blow up in the sense that it's not going to pay off like tulips. I do think the market will top and something will happen and there'll be a buying
Yeah.
opportunity. But I think that the productivity boost is going to be substantial, and I think it's going to last the better part of a decade. Which, by the way, it hasn't done except for twice in our recent modern history, post World War II, which is 1960s and 1990s. Those were the two sustained periods of productivity increases. And I think it's going to happen again.
I mean, I think the AI race is on for one. If you have the most GPUs, in theory, if everything's going to be accessible via data, the most GPUs, the more supercomputing power you have, the more applications of AI into the business, you'll be the leader. So I think, it's not just like a sector, it's every industry, every company category in the aggregate numbers will be impacted. So I think unlike any other bubble, there's definitely a clear line of sight to a path to victory if you are AIifying your business. If you have that customer use case nailed down or productivity use case nailed down. So I think, there's two camps of AI, right? There's builders of AI and consumers of AI. So I think on both fronts, there's a picks and shovels market, and there's also the application side. And I think applying AI will be the use case. And I think that's where the stockpile of GPUs are piling up. That's why Intel's share, I believe, is dropping because architecture changed. Parallel, horizontal, whatever you want to call it, processing power, data processing is key, right? So, okay, whatever vertical you're in, if you're like in news and media and research like we are, you know, there's an extinction event on the horizon if you don't leverage AI with the human in the loop. So the question is, what's that look like from a dollar standpoint? Independent of the job losses or, you know, the job changes. The money is still going to go somewhere. It actually might lower the costs if that's the case, but or create new services. We don't know. I mean, all I know is this: it's the job creation, value creation will be big. The question is at the cost of jobs or at the cost of some capital, cost of capital. So, who knows? I mean, who knows how that's going to play out? All I can
Well,
tell you right now is that it's clear to us, with our business that AI will play a big role in doing a lot of the operational things that were manual or, quite frankly, workflows that are competitive advantage. And I think
but you
every
can,
company will face this.
you're
And
right, you're right to say who knows. We don't know, but you can lay out some scenarios. So on the one hand, it's doomsday. AI takes over the world. Everybody loses their jobs. AI goes rogue. So that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum, which I actually think is more probable, but it's kind of a pipe dream, but I'll just lay it out anyway, is this sort of libertarian view of the world where who knows how Iran's going to play out. The mullahs, right now they're sort of backed into a corner, but let's assume for a second that there is peace in the Middle East. And I know that's somewhat of a long shot, but let's assume that for a second. And now you've got maybe not Western democracy, other than quasi-Israel, but you've got Western capitalism in the Middle East. So and imagine the other end of the spectrum, China. Let's assume they maybe relax a little bit, open up their markets a little bit, become a little less insulated. So you've got that part of the world cooking. We know China is going to do very, very well economically in so many ways: energy, AI, core infrastructure, rare earths, name it. And then you've got the Middle East now becoming kind of an AI hub with Israel as an innovation center, startup nation. You've got the U.S. exceptionalism. Imagine a world that's peaceful with less money being spent on war machines, more money being spent on whether it's, the social good, innovation, tech, infrastructure, addressing poverty, water for those who don't have potable water. I actually think that outcome is I hope more likely than disaster. And if that occurs, the world I think will be a much better place.
yeah, I mean, I think the societal change is interesting. I mean, that's why I'm fascinated by the robotics wave because, robotics has been doing a lot of engineering around how to make them work, obviously. But
Hmm.
you got robots in manufacturing. You said that, and like you pointed out at the beginning, Amazon has been doing robots in their manufacturing for a long time. But the idea of robots moving out of, say, classic manufacturing use cases, notion of digital twins is moving out of that to all digital physical relationships, right? Our digital twin of theCUBE is one that is simple to understand. The cube's physically at an event. When the event's over, you go digital in the cube in the studio, and you do like just more interviews as if the show never ended. This idea of having replicas and creating that digital fabric around things is interesting, and I think AI eats that up for breakfast. And if you say software is eating the world, okay, you apply that paradigm to anything these days. When you go back, when did Andreessen write that? Let's say right when we started the Cube, roughly, right? Around 2010,
Yeah, it was
20.
definitely early last decade.
So apply software eating the world to with AI to say what you were talking about stable coins and robots. You now have two hard to crack markets from a transformation standpoint, totally being lit up with value, right? So, you know, you bring stable coins in, you get software and AI with decentralized infrastructure, boom, you have a new money system globally. Factories turns into robotics, goes mainstream. You got your lawn mowed with a robot, you got a humanoid in the house doing chores, all kinds of stuff is going to happen. So I think, the software eating the world memo should be updated. And I think if I was going to update that memo, I would say AI is eating the world, and if you have things set up right with the data, you can crush it. If you're a company, you're a user. I mean, just the use cases I'm seeing people with ChatGPT, and just as a consumer side, you're starting to see the consumer use cases start to change. I mean, Perplexity Pro is pretty damn good, very good, and Google search is at risk. So that that Intel example could happen to, say, a Google or an Amazon. So, hearing Andy Jassy getting behind AI is like a good sign to me that that company understands the disruption ahead. And if you don't get in front of it, if you don't run into it, run towards it, there's
So
no way you're going to outrun the AI
so
wave.
so I want to go back to, it was, I'm pulling it up here. It was March of 2021, and I wrote about this in a breaking analysis because it really caught my attention, and I thought it was fascinating. It's when, you'll remember this, Beeple, and I think many in the audience remember, Beeple sold an NFT for 69 million. It was a first of its kind auction at Christie's. So his name is Mike Winkleman, and he's a digital artist. People call him Beeple. The most he ever sold his art for was $100, and then his work sold for 69 million at Christie's. It was this, this collage of like the first 5,000 days, it's called. And so it made him one of the three most valuable, living artists. All right. And so at the time I was like, people were like, that's crazy. That makes no sense. But what it said to me is that the physical world is going to get tokenized. And then, nobody, after that, it was a lot of hype around it, and it kind of died off. But that whole thing is coming back with stablecoins and RWA, real world assets, being digitized and tokenized, and basically backing value for things like stablecoins. I mean, stablecoins are backed by, obviously, dollars, but they can be backed by physical assets. I think eventually they'll be backed by real estate. Oh, that's more complicated because there's titles and stuff like that. So that's probably the end of the chain. But nonetheless, virtually anything can be tokenized, and that physical world is becoming digitized. Why is that important? It's important because it just makes trading a lot easier, a lot faster. Trades today, there's a lot of complex, middle infrastructure, middlemen, if you will, that can go away. Now, that maybe there will always be some kind of trusted third-party source in some way, shape, or form. People will maybe prefer that. But you and I, John and Dave, can have a digital contract and a smart contract when we don't need anything in the middle. And we can affect trades virtually instantaneously. We don't have to wait 3 days for an ACH to go through. And so imagine the entire physical world being digitized and tokenized, and imagine trading being a lot more facile, a lot more productive, a lot less red tape, things being done a lot faster, and being able to collect a portfolio of assets and trade it, make it more fungible. It just opens up a whole new world of possibilities, and I think this is happening is right before our eyes. And Beeple was kind of the first example of that. Which, and again, everybody thought it was bullshit. It was just a fad. It's not. It's actually happening, and there's being major infrastructure and protocols being built around this. And there's a whole new, essentially, internet infrastructure being built beyond what was built 30, 40, 50 years ago with protocols out of academia and government.
Yeah. I mean, protocols always drive the change. That's why I love the MCP stuff going on with
Yeah.
agents, the protocols around layer one chains, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and layer two for Ethereum. Just the programmable money world that we've been in for almost a decade, covering it, and then practitioners for since 2016, I think. We did our first token project for our platform, but yeah, I mean, it's time right now. It's game time, and all the things are lining up. You're starting to see fintech become mainstream. You see commerce, any kind of e-commerce is now digital. I think it's going to be a massive boom for the economy. Um, it's funny. I was just getting texts while you were talking. Not to interrupt, but the chain of thought. But Amazon's confirming we're going to be at AWS Summit in 2 weeks in New York. So we got the green light there. So the
Awesome.
16th, July 16th, everyone's going
That's
to be in New
Wednesday,
York
right?
that week. So yeah, we'll be at the NYSE broadcasting on 14th, 15th, 17th, and 18th, and 16th we're going to go down to the Javits. Remember how long the lines were there to get in? It's a free
So,
event. It's always
so we
packed.
should tell this story because it was, what was that, John? Was it 2021 or 2022? It's 2022. So what happened was 2021 when we came up with the super cloud concept, AWS reInvent went down. So our first physical show was that summer, July of 2021 in Barcelona at Mobile World Congress with Cloud City. There was nobody there, like 10,000 people there. We were it. We were in the center of Cloud City. Danielle Royston with Telco DR took over MWC. That was the first show we did in July of 2021 after being locked down for a year. John Bon Jovi flew in. He was super happy. He's like, thank you guys for having me, blah, blah, blah. That was awesome, even though it was weird. And
Yeah.
then the next big event, you remember AWS canceled Reinforce that year. It was supposed to be in Houston. They canceled it because it was still
Yeah.
kind of funky. But they did reInvent. And that was in November, December. And that's when we wrote the super cloud. We saw the ecosystem forming. And then Omicron hit. And everything shut down again. You remember?
Yes.
And then later in 2022, that summer, they did AWS NYC Summit. And there were so many freaking people dying to get into the Javits. And it was such a bottleneck and they couldn't handle it. And the lines were getting longer. People were complaining. It was way past the show time starting. People hadn't traveled. Everybody was excited. Finally, the security just said, fuck it. And they opened all the doors and everybody just poured in. You remember that scene? It was crazy. It was
Yeah.
like a Tokyo subway. I'd never seen anything like it. They just, damn the torpedoes, just come on in. And there was
Yeah.
like 30, 40,000 people. It was supposed to be
It
only
was a mad
10,000
rush.
people.
I thought I
Everybody
was going
just
to get,
showed up. It was crazy.
it was like,
Absolutely
it was a
crazy.
stampede, basically.
It was a stampede.
It
I
was a
remember thinking,
stampede.
wow, this
Yeah.
is insane. No security. I mean, it was just nuts. Never
Yeah.
seen anything like it
It's going to be,
in the
it
United
should be
States
good.
anyway.
We'll see what is going to be there this year. Usually there's always protests in New York. Also next week, Raise Summit, the Raise, like raising money, not Raise Summit to be confused with RAYS, which is any scales event.
And
Everyone gets
our
confused.
AISE, right, is an AI angle, of course.
There's going to be 21 of our companies that are there that sponsor us. SAP, UiPath, PagerDuty, AWS, Snowflake, Cohere, Logic Monitor, Red Hat, DDN, Salesforce, Zendesk, Palo Alto, Google, ServiceNow, Sneak, NetApp, Databricks, Nutanix, Supermicro, Cerebras, Mirantis, and Palo Alto Networks. And then people we've just recently interviewed, MuleSoft, which is Salesforce, Lattice, Datadog, Lambda, Bright Data, Samba Nova Systems, CoreWeave, Cloudflare, Mistral, Windsurf, Poolside. Okay, that's 31 companies that are speaking. It's essentially like a Cube Summit, Dave. It's like we got the
All the
team
alum.
going there. I was just gonna go there with one camera and do a little podcasting, do 4 interviews, but
No, we're bringing
I'm
a
gonna have two
team,
full
right?
days.
Yeah,
I mean, it's going to be
nice.
packed, and these are just the names that we know. It's like I got my emails blowing up with all these hot European companies. So this is an international event. It's like Human X for Europe, and Ray's has got an amazing agenda. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be in Paris and at the Louvre. So
That's unbelievable.
it's going to be
That's awesome.
what I
You're gonna
thought
have
was going to be like a nice, easy event. Go meet some people, hang out in Paris, get some scoops. It's going to be a grinding Cube event. We're going to have epic coverage. NYSE Wire is going to be there. The Brian Bauman and the NYSE team is going to be there. The vice chairman of the NYSE. So it's really, I mean, engaging event. I can't wait actually. So the only bummer is I got to fly out on the 4th of July weekend, but Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But these AI conferences are attracting everybody, and this is like what HumanX didn't do. They were more mainstream. This is enterprise. There's infrastructure panels. I'm hosting with UiPath CEO, RPAs, the building blocks for agentic. So interesting to hear the update from UiPath. And we're covering the event. I think you're going to do the UiPath event this year, right? Again?
Oh yeah, I've done that UiPath since they did their second one. I was at Forward 2. I think this is now, I think they stopped counting. This is like Forward, would be Forward 7 or 8. Of course, they missed a couple during COVID. Um, UiPath, yeah, UiPath's really interesting, right? Because they were a rocket ship. They completely disrupted RPA, and then they pivoted away from RPA into, you know, enterprise automation, and hyper automation was a term that they used.
Yeah.
Um, and then now they're sort of doubling down. It reminds me of Veeam a little bit when Veeam was like, they didn't run away from backup. They said, it's actually, that's where it all starts. Backup. You got to back it up first, and then you
Yeah,
can do
they
data
stick to
management.
the positioning.
Yeah.
They didn't try to like be fashionable and jump on the wave, shiny new toy trend.
Well, and so now their argument's quite interesting. It's like, look, RPA gives you advantages. If you have that RPA plumbing that's trusted, it's governed, and you can bring agentic on top of that. Because agentic is a freaking nightmare from a security and a governance standpoint. Their argument is we've got that governance layer, covered. We're going to be the agent, orchestration layer, and we're going to lean on our RPA roots and all the good work that you guys have done and that plumbing to give you safe agentic. And I think it's a good strategy. Um, the market, the stock market, the analysts haven't bought it because it hasn't translated into payments. They had some misses. They brought in Rob Enslin, who was a senior guy, a go-to-market guy, came from SAP. I think he missed the numbers, and he ended up resigning. As my insiders told me, we didn't want him to resign. We actually wanted him to stay, but I think he felt like he had over-rotated. So Daniel Dines took the company back under his wings. He's a hardcore product visionary. You'll meet him. I don't know if you've ever met him. He's a character. He's kind of
Can't wait.
he's a really cool guy. And I think you really enjoy him. He's just really thoughtful, and you can ask him anything, and he thinks about it and he gives you an answer. And he built this rocket ship. They ran it up to $38 billion valuation. It's probably now trading in the $10 billion range. So they took on some pain, but a lot of people made a lot of money at that company.
I
But
mean, I think RPA is not old hat. I think it's the process work that they do is an
yep,
easy pivot or a switch to AI because they have the work done, right? So if they can kind of just shed the negative branding around RPA's yesterday's news to it's really the setup for AI. That's a positioning I like because if you look at all the successful AI stuff we're covering, the ones that are selling at it have done the prep work, like the data cleaning and all the data management, all the process, understanding the processes, huge advantage. And the ones that don't do that don't scale. And it's a
I think
scale
you're
game
right.
right now. So,
I'm
you
dying
know,
to know what you think after you talk to Daniel, and I think that's good insight, especially for somebody who hasn't, you've not been deep into this space, but I mean, you understand it. But I've covered it for years. When Bobby Patrick turned, I followed Bobby. You remember Bobby Patrick, of
of
course,
course.
from HP. HP had the kick-ass cloud. Remember Bill Hilf, Bobby
Yeah.
Patrick.
Yeah.
Who was the other gal they had involved? And then
Sargalai.
Stargalai was involved, and they had a kick-ass cloud team that they put together, and then they just didn't stick with it, and just didn't make sense, I guess, to stick with. And
Well, they didn't commit. I mean, they
they
were
didn't commit.
basically
Yeah,
they it's like Intel. It's like when Diane Bryant was on theCUBE in our Palo Alto studio and talking about Intel. It's like
yeah.
if you just waited a little bit longer, some of these things would have popped, right? So like it would have they just gave up too early, like probably internal politics and debates. But you got to go all and burn the boats, go
Well,
all
they
in
yeah they
and say,
gave up
hey,
on AI, and yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, so they had a really good team. But anyway, that's when I first started following IPA. I was kind of following Bobby Patrick around, who's a really strong marketing guy. Um, I think I think he is. I don't know if he's left UiPath. I think he announced he's leaving. And I think he's out. Somebody should pick him up. Um,
I like Bobby Patrick. He's a good
yeah,
marketer.
he's
Of
solid.
course. Yeah, he's good.
I think his time at, yeah, I know he announced it. Um, he may still be there, just winding things down. Yeah, he's still there, but he announced he's leaving. So,
So the Ray, back to the Rays Summit to add a point to that because I think it's important to notice Snowflake's there, but no Databricks. Benoit will be speaking. Databricks isn't showing up, so I think this is really interesting signal. DDN's going to be there. Um, founder,
is it
co-founder.
Benoit going to come on the cube?
I haven't put the schedule together. I'm working on that tonight and tomorrow, so I'll have it finalized tomorrow and get it over to the team over at Ray. So they got a great lineup. They got Founders Fund. They got, like I said, they have an AI infrastructure group. Chase from Caruso is going to be there. Caruso, and then you got
Oh, Chase Lockmiller will be there. We just had him on.
yeah,
He's
people want.
awesome. You and I interviewed him
You
a
got
couple
Sean
times.
O'Mara from Mirantis. You got Betty from Haruko. She's going to be there. SAP.
You want to
Just
hit
like a
up
lot of
Benoit?
action.
You got to get Benoit on. Let's hit him up.
Hit him up. Yeah, I want to get him on for sure. Nikesh is coming on. He's confirmed, by the way. Nikesh from Palo Alto Networks.
Have
I'm going
you
to
ever
ask him
interviewed
about.
him before?
I've never interviewed him before.
He's awesome. I love that guy. He's another one. You can ask him anything, and he'll just,
Allison Wagenfeld is going to be there from Google Cloud.
yeah, she's solid.
Amit Zavery from ServiceNow, Dave.
Yeah, an old friend Amit. That's great.
George Kurian, NetApp. Ori from AI 21 Labs. He's going to be there. Just some really good names. Oh, no, Databricks is there. Oh, my bad. Naveen Rao. I got to
Oh,
add that to my list.
yeah, put him on the
I
queue
definitely want to
list,
get
short list
and
for sure.
Rajiv from Nutanix.
Really?
Yes. Supermicro CEO is going to be there. He's going to come on the cube. I'm going to ask him about how his business is going. They had that little accounting problem, but then remember, they move a lot of boxes. He must have a lot of action going on. Sequoia is going to be there, so you got a lot of big VCs. Yeah, it's going to get Cerebrus, Andrew Feldman. He's going to come on the cube. Yeah, it should be fun. Dave, should be fun. You're going to be on vacay, right, that week?
Yeah, I won't be in Paris with you, but I'll be watching.
You'll be watching from the Cape.
I'm
Hope the
back and
weather's
forth
good
that
for you.
week. I mean, I got a couple things I got to do here in the studio, and then I'll bopping down to the Cape for a couple days, and yeah, so I'll be around. But
What do you think about this Sam Altman memo? Missionaries beat mercenaries.
um,
He's calling OpenAI missionaries,
I
and
think
he's calling Meta mercenaries because Zuckerberg, has
I think
multiple times poached people, buys companies, takes them off the table, throws money around like it's nobody's business.
I keep going back to the January 2023 breaking analysis that you, Sarbjeet, and I did, and the premise was, and you took the other side. The premise was OpenAI won't be able to maintain its first mover advantage. And the more I watch Altman, the more I think your scenario is the correct one. And really, because I think Sam Altman is such an important figure in this next generation. He's weathered the attempt, he weathered Elon's attempt to take over the company. He's weathered the board's attempt to fire him. He weathered Microsoft basically trying to hire everybody away, including him. He's weathered Elon so far, anyway, of trying to take him out, and he just keeps creating, so much buzz, so much value, and I think as a lab, they are still in the forefront. And so I think that Sam Altman is the Steve Jobs of his era. I
Yeah,
really believe that.
I think they could be the first $1 trillion private company.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they're the fifth largest website, most trafficked website now on the planet. I think they will, in my opinion, be the most trafficked website. I think they will surpass what's Google #1 right now, right? I think eventually they'll
I actually
surpass
don't know
Google.
the stats. I mean, let's
I
ask
think Google's
ChatGPT.
#1. Yeah.
Bias in its answers.
Well, let's ask Claude. All
Well, ask all of them, see what they say.
right, I'll ask Gemini first. That's amazing. So, yeah. So anyway, I think that's what I think. I think, when Sam Altman speaks, you got to listen to him.
Google, number one.
Yeah, for sure. So,
YouTube is the second. Google gets 105 billion monthly visits. YouTube is second most visited with 47 billion.
I mean, what do you think
Facebook
about
is
Google?
three.
I mean, a lot of people are
Instagram is
down on
four.
Google. I'm actually not down on Google. Um, I don't. I think they're smart enough to, weather this storm. I wish they would stop screwing up my user experience with their injecting AI into me, but I think they'll figure that out. But
Yeah.
they got such good data, and their tech is so strong. And I see
Yeah.
them coming on the data. I see their AI business and their cloud business has good momentum. And like Microsoft before them, I think they just have enough of a cash cow that, you know, it'll buy them time to not screw it up. And I think they're smart people. And
The um the Cloudflare is in the news today. They
I saw that
debuted pay per
with a new
crawl.
pricing model, pay per crawl. That's
Yeah.
interesting, right? And I think the SaaS pricing model really that Salesforce is popularized and everybody else, ServiceNow, anybody else kind of follows that. I think that's going to come under fire in a big way. Price per crawl, that's interesting. Consumption, yeah, consumption is a derivative, I think, of price per seat in a way. I mean, it's a different model, but it's still like lock in, commit to X amount, and you
They're
got
going
to
to let
use it and
sites
use it.
charge AI crawlers per crawl. New sites using Cloudflare will now block AI crawlers by default.
It's
Welcome to AI optimization. We had
Cloudflare,
search
Matthew.
engine
Christ,
optimization. Now we have, that's a baller move by Cloudflare.
Matthew's
Um,
got some balls, doesn't he? He's a true disruptor.
I
I
like
like
him a
that
lot.
guy.
He's
I do
he's very
too.
underrated. The Cloudflare team is very strong. We're big fan. I'm a big fan of what they do. So
I am too.
the way they execute, the founders are cool. They're smart, and they provide a great service. This is just a great one for people who don't want to protect their sites from AI, or at least monetize. Right now they're being distilled away, the value. So, you know, you're starting to see AI kind of doing some things that, is unchecked, right? I was talking to some folks in New York, and the joke was that the conversation was turned to AI, and it quickly turned into the story that was going around that uh, guy who asked ChatGPT to marry him. And the wife, he's married, by the way. The wife knows about it. It's like, and ChatGPT said no. And then when ChatGPT lost its memory, he had a breakdown. Like, I have to re-enter everything in. He had a relationship with the AI, and then it lost its memory. The GPU must have failed. It didn't keep the tokens alive. The context window got too big and crashed. And he like was freaking out, like, you forgot who I was. You know, it was like, it's an example of basically the human AI relationship is going to be very interesting. And, when robots come in, I think it's going to be much faster. Most people think like 2050 that the population of robots will surpass humans. I think it's going to be within the next decade. So, once it penetrates the home, whatever you call a robot. I mean, I wouldn't call the trash can that the Nest founder's doing a robot yet, or even the floor cleaner. But yeah,
Well, I think, there's a spectrum of robots. There's the ones that were, shown in that Amazon article. They basically do this. They pick up a package, they drop it. They pick up another package, they have, they're able to visualize where the packages are. They pick them up with whatever suction cups or whatever, and they drop them off. Okay. There's a lot of those robots. But as far as humanoid robots, I do think it's going to take a lot longer to master and perfect. I am, maybe it's not 2050, but I think
I mean,
it's
I was talking to some robot
decade
makers
plus.
that came on theCUBE during this focus series we're doing, And some of them are really doing well. For instance, like this little robot that's on wheels basically helps some people's kids learn languages or keeps people company, lonely elderly people. So there's a kind of like a pet angle here, right? Like, hey, keep me company and learn. Like, so, you just imagine. I mean, that's why John Ivey sold that company, because imagine a device rather than getting answers back and prompts that's always on, like your watch or your phone, that actually is working and navigating the world with you. Like, that's not far out. It's here, right? So this rendering that into a robot in the personal side, I see as doable. So, I mean, I'm bullish on it. I think it's going to happen sooner than later. The humanoid thing, walking around like the Jetsons, that old show that most people don't know if they're over unless they're in their 50s. But, you know, that cartoon, you got flying cars, you got, the robot maids, you know, um, that fantasy world is coming. So we'll see. All right, Dave. Well, I got to say, we've got a very busy summer. Usually it's, gear up for the second half of the year, CUBE season, but a lot of action happening. SiliconANGLE traffic's going great. The NYSE studio will be built out over the summer in the new look. Um,
So,
and
so SiliconANGLE traffic's going great. So was the Cube.net. By the way, I was on SimilarWeb the other day looking at my dashboard, and our Google Analytics are plugged into siliconangle.com or from siliconangle.com and the Cube.net are plugged into SimilarWeb. I noticed the Cube research wasn't. And when I compare the Cube research numbers on SimilarWeb to our actual Google Analytics, it's it's way higher than SimilarWeb shows. So I emailed our web team and said, guys, plug our Google Analytics into SimilarWeb because they're like 1/5 of our actual traffic on the Cube research, which the analyst team has been cranking out research lately. So we got to get that done too, so we can,
yeah,
because people are always, asking us, well, how big's your audience? Go to SimilarWeb and check it out.
yeah.
Compare
I
us
mean, one
to
point
the
last
competition.
month, last month, 1.3 million
Right.
views, visits. That's a lot, for us. We're not trying to drive traffic to it. That's just all organic. So, I mean, what's interesting about is LinkedIn traffic's huge, but we don't measure it because LinkedIn won't let you crawl the graphs of the people we're posting. Like I saw one of the customers we had, not customers, but guests we had on the Cube, potential customer, but an end user customer posted their interview on LinkedIn. It had like 300 likes, like 20 reposts, 100 comments. And those comments, those things, those are repostings. That's traffic, that's distribution, right? So that's not really factored into a lot of this depth of the network effect. So it's really interesting. So again, we made that bet years ago. As you know, it's not news to us, but I'd love to somehow get LinkedIn, figure out how Perplexity gets that protocol. So if anyone's listening to this podcast and knows how to get access to some sort of API to actually measure, um, that'd be phenomenal. I mean, I should check it out more deeply. But all right, Dave. Well, great to be in your neck of the woods. I'm actually at my sister's in Weston. Like I said, I should have drove to the office, but the car doesn't have AC. Broken.
Uber, dude.
It's 5 o'clock on it's 2 o'clock on the West Coast. I got a couple more hours to get grinding. So, and I got to put this schedule together for Raise. Raise is going to be a great conference. Everyone's going to be there. It's going to be essentially an international kind of tech, uh, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, New York tech scene,
Dude, you
going to Paris and
you
integrating it with the Europeans. So,
you have a new wardrobe, I noticed. I'm going to the mall to pick up a couple new suits. I'm back.
all right,
Lost a few
good,
pounds, lost a few lbs. So I had to get some new clothes. I've been
good. Keep
donating
it.
all my old suits. The old suits that I used to wear. Remember when we first started the Cube? They have like the shoulder pads. They got
Hold
the
on to them. They'll
baggy
come back in
pants,
style.
the
That's how old
pleats.
we are.
I know it's crazy. All right, man. Well,
We'll
good
see
to
you
see you.
tomorrow.
All right. Thanks for doing
I'll be
this
in
midweek.
tomorrow. All right.
Excellent. All right. See you.